Today on the podcast, what does Shipwrecks, Counting Gold Coins, author, and a dad? That is my guest, Taylor Zajonc from ExpeditionWriters.com. Next on the podcast, let's do this.
Welcome to the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast, a podcast about a journey of discovery and conversations about not sitting on the sideline of life. Let's get involved. Here's host Joe Foley.
Welcome to the podcast. Hey, my name is Joe Foley. I'm a dad, a parent, crazy busy adult in this world, and I want to say thank you for being here. I know as a dad and a parent, our time's limited, so you choose to spend time. I mean, it really means a lot. And this is your first time, welcome. This is a podcast about a journey of discovery and a conversation what it means to be a dad and a parent and a busy adult. The history talk related to being a productive person and hopefully make ourselves a better parent. The weekly podcast dedicated to sense of community. What I mean by that is I want to talk to you. See? Right there in the right-hand corner. If you're looking at your PC, speak pipe, leave a message. Leave a message in the show notes. Leave a comment. Subscribe in iTunes. Leave a review. All comments or conversations are important. So we need a dialogue to, because we can work together and have a sense of community. We're all going through some kind of issues. You know what? I may be further along down the issue road than you, or vice versa, and maybe we can help each other out. I'm not an expert. I'm just a dad on a journey trying to take one day at a time. Also, I was wondering, if you have a minute, please head over to Apple Podcast app and subscribe to the show. Leave a review. If you're an Android, please click on the subscribe button in the Android button and subscribe. Next up, my conversation with Taylor Zajonc, author, Naval Historian, and most important job being a dad. There was a very fun conversation with Tyler, and it was kind of cool listening about the counting the gold coins. So, jump right into the interview. Today on the podcast, my guest is Taylor Zajonc, author, maritime historian, but important dad. Welcome, Tyler. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I gotta ask right off the top. I know you're a naval historian, maritime historian, and you explore shipwrecks. I think I'd ask that. That sounds really cool. I just want to know a little. I wonder if you want to talk a little about that before we talk about being a dad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into it right after college. First job out of college was as an assistant to an archaeologist for a company that had just found a historic Civil War era steamship off of South Carolina with an enormous cargo of gold and silver. So we were pulling up so many coins off this wreck that I once spent 14 straight hours in a locked room with a couple other guys counting it as it was coming off the ship. 14 straight hours, one coin after another. It was an incredible experience. I kind of grew into a role as a historian for that company, and then for some other companies beyond that. Had a chance to participate as a researcher and help find a number of different historic shipwrecks over the years too, which is always a real thrill.
What it's interesting is counting coins can be boring at one point, but you're counting gold coins. They're probably exciting on the other end too. I mean, nervous and exciting at the same time. Yeah,
I think that's a good way of putting it. It's, to a certain extent, if you do anything for 14 hours straight, you're just going to be absolutely exhausted, right? But we were doing well out there, though. That was a pretty exciting thing.
You're a dad yourself, and if you're semi-new dad, I know your son's a little bit over a year old. How does that play now since you're a dad? How do you feel about doing stuff like that?
It just changes absolutely everything. The joke I make is, had a kid, sold the motorcycle, and which I didn't necessarily think that I would do. I didn't think that I was going to do something like that. Absolutely. Now, whenever there's an opportunity, the lens that I look at it through is, first, is this going to take time away from the time I spent with Sammy? Because every day he's a new kid. You know how they are in those first year or 2 year, where if you miss one day, sometimes it's like you miss, this whole evolution. And of course, the danger part of it is increasingly in the forefront of my mind too, because I wouldn't call it like ridiculously dangerous, but there are some concerns, security and otherwise, for some of these types of jobs.
It's interesting. I totally agree. My son's 3, is going to be 4 now, and it's every time you're like, especially when he was a little bit younger, like 3 or 2 or 3. I can totally understand where you're coming from in the sense that, wow, this one day he did what? Oh, he said what? Oh, he's walking. So it's fun. It just goes by so quick, but it's so much fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And bring with the email we talked about integrating being a dad and creative. Since you're an author, and I know you have a bunch of books, how does that work? I mean, how you do being a dad and the responsibility to dad and also be an author?
Yeah. I'm glad we have a chance to talk about this. I know that some of your guests are more in the nonfiction realm, which is a very different approach than what I do. I'm a fiction author. I've got a couple novels out, and I realized my first book came out about when he was about 1 month old. And you know how those first few months are. Nobody's sleeping whatsoever. And I had another book that was under contract, but I hadn't finished writing it. So I wrote probably about 90% of it after he was born until age about 5 months or so. And I was so tired that I just don't remember writing it. I just have this whole book and I don't remember writing it. But I think that my biggest takeaway from that, my biggest lesson was that you can't, it's very easy for new parenthood and creative outlets to essentially fight each other, right? They both take from the same limited pool of time, same limited pool of energy, but they don't necessarily have to always be at odds. So my approach ended up being that I tried to use how I felt about being a new dad, being exhausted, not knowing what to do, all of this incredible experience, but it all being so difficult at the same time, and try to use that in this most recent novel. Really put some of the characters through the same thing, where suddenly they realize that they're responsible for other people, responsible to each other. They're exhausted like I'm exhausted, and really try to look for a way to integrate those two worlds rather than have them always fight each other for the last couple hours of the day.
It's interesting. Since you're a newer dad, before your son was born until now, is it what you expected, more or less, or because everybody says you got to do this, that, and this, and there's really no owner's manual when it comes when you have a kid. I was wondering how did you see a difference?
Yeah, most certainly. Well, our family joke is that nobody warned us. Oh wait, everybody warned us. We just didn't listen. So I don't know exactly what I expected, but it was, every day was something new, a way to be humbled by how little we knew what we were doing, but also a chance to really experience something amazing.
Hey, can you have any funny stories? When you being the first time dad, any interesting funny stories?
Oh yeah, I wonder just where to start. So our son Sammy is very mobile. He started walking at 8 months. He has prioritized being physical and mobile above almost everything else. That's all he's interested in doing is figuring out ways to run and climb. So there were some moments where he first started being able to stand, and diaper changes became just absolute rodeo. And there were some moments where he's running around and I'm covered with all kinds of things, and I just want to like give up and cry. but you can't. Gotta keep going.
It's funny because I can remember the story of my son about that same age, and we used to have like a bureau in the bedroom and change him. And I'm by myself, and I'm like, I got this little problem. I got the diaper, I got the butt paste, and I'm like, hold him. I grab. All of a sudden, he rolls. he rolled off the bureau, and I grabbed him by both his legs as his head's like an inch from the floor. And I felt like the worst dad in the world, but I'm like, I strapped him. I want to strap him in, but I'm like, whew, I saved the disaster. But man, that's being a new dad. Those things happen.
Yeah, but sounds like you already had the dad reflexes down.
Yeah, like, or the other time, all of a sudden you stop short, and my son is a little bit older. All of a sudden you walk right in your backside, like, where is he? Where is he going? Boom, stop. Oh, there he is. Another thing I found interesting, and I guess I see a lot of parents, and I do it myself. I gotta admit, I'm not innocent in any way. But and you were something about phone and couch dad. I'm in my phone, but I try to, I know for me, I try to pay attention, even though I can only take so many of those kid shows over and over and over again. But I just wanted your opinion about it.
Yeah, so this is something we are by no means perfect about this. In our situation, my wife is a wedding photographer, so she gets a lot of inquiries. There's a lot of networking. It's just a very demanding, round-the-clock kind of a job where it's very difficult to separate personal time from business time. And for myself, I work full-time. I'm also an author. There's a lot of demands there. And our phone is what she uses to book business, and for me, it's my connection to literary agent and that whole universe. So when something comes in, it's very easy to just immediately get pulled into another world, right? So the way that we've kind of tried to work around that as a family is if one of us sees the other one on the phone when we're kind of missing a moment where we should be present, which is most of the time with a 16-month-old. We try to say something like, you're being a phone dad or a couch dad, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of being engaged. Again, we're far from perfect on this. It's something that we still struggle with every day, but I think at the very least we have at least a mechanism to recognize what we're doing and maybe pull us out of that and reprioritize.
It's interesting because I think also too with advancement in technology and stuff too. I mean, it's great when kids get older, you can have a tablet, they can teach them stuff, but also too, I think when parents have them too, it can hinder or not foster good communication. Yeah,
definitely, and I'm sure you're little guys like this, but whatever I'm doing, Sammy wants to do, right? So if I'm eating, he wants to eat. If I'm playing with something, he wants to play with it. It's a great tool, but that also means if I'm on my phone, that phone just becomes this object of interest and mystery and amazement, right? So that was another thing that was kind of a wake-up call, which is if we're on our phone all the time, then the phone is going to be the most interesting thing in the world to him. And that's not really what we want his childhood to be like.
I guess I think we'll talk about your new book. I know there's new books coming. You're in the process and writing new books inspired by your son?
Yeah, these won't be out for a while yet. These are coming out in 2019, but in addition to the couple novels I've had published and the next one that's coming out next year, I had the opportunity to participate in an illustrated children's book series. And my first kind of take on it was that I wasn't sure if it was the right project for me. I write adventure fiction for grown-ups. Mm-hmm. But then I realized that I could name the main character after Sammy. And the idea that he could have something of mine that I'd written and he could read it while he's still small, as opposed to maybe 15 years from now. I mean, that was a big deal to me, and I really put a lot into this project. So I'm really excited to see how it all turns out.
It's a great thing to leave your son, especially almost like I say legacy, but something cool that he can. Well, my dad wrote that, and you can see it in the store or on Amazon or any place where you purchase the book. That'd be kind of neat for him.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's not just one thing. I think that I try to take that approach to a number of things. Even a podcast like this. There's something I'm going to save and something I'm going to show him when he's old enough so he can understand what his dad thought about being his father while he was still really small.
How does your son, besides writing, how does your son inspire you every day? Because, I know that my son inspires me. How does it inspire you?
That's a good question. Fatherhood is the most intense experience I've ever had. All of your emotions are heightened. All the experiences are new. So from just a purely fiction standpoint, it's a new opportunity to reach some areas of the self and develop characters that I probably just wouldn't have been able to do before having him. Beyond that, though, I think that having him has really led to a lot of self-interrogation about the sort of father that I want to be, the type of dad that my father was to me, and what he showed me and how he shaped my worldview and what I want to do in that same respect. So I want to be a dad that shows him all the possibilities of the world and how to get inspired and engaged with things too. So I think that you can't just tell a child that. You have to really show it. So if I'm going to teach him how to be engaged with the world, I have to be engaged with the world. And for me, writing and publishing is probably my favorite way of doing that.
Have you ever felt like being a new dad, with the busyness of taking care of a young one? You ever fall in the trap of being in a rut?
Yeah. My default tends not to be a rut so much as just overscheduled. I think is my biggest issue with that. He's still at the age where he's so young that a very strong routine is a really good thing. Because it makes sure he goes to sleep on time and things are stable. And I think that we're going to continue to maybe experience new things once he's just a little bit older. But for right now, we're trying to enjoy the routine.
It's another thing. I guess I don't know if I'm my experience, but has any fears when you first become a dad? It all of a sudden, what's your biggest fear?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd have to choose from about 1,000. Biggest fear. Maybe this is just the way that we're wired, but I think that I'm always afraid that he's going to hurt himself. The way that he's always running around and just no fear about going down slides or climbing on things. And we really have to watch him every second because he's so active. So biggest fear is probably that he's gonna, break a bone or something like that. I think perhaps as he gets older, we'll have some other concerns, but for right now, it feels pretty immediate.
Well, it's interesting too, I guess. I don't know how old you are yourself, but do you ever think of your want to be around? Do you start counting birthdays and see, all right, in 20 years I'll be here at that age, or I want to be around? I was thinking more about your mortality. You ever think of your mortality as a father and count? And when your new son's born, like, oh, I want to be around when he's like 20. How old is that thing? I start calculating and stuff like that. I was wondering if you've experienced something like that.
Yes, pretty frequently. I'm trying to kind of make better decisions about health and activities and things like that. It's in the past, I've done things like volunteer search and rescue, or gone caving or rock climbing and things like that. So I'm not saying that I would just suddenly stop doing anything like that, but it tends to be more of a, let's call it like a measured approach, rather than act first, think second. And then just generally, I'm trying to just take better care of my health too. I really want to be around when he's all grown up and out in the world and still able to really enjoy life and do things with him. So yeah, trying to go to the gym more, eat a little bit better. It's always just kind of in the back of my mind. I think you're very much on point with that.
I wonder if you want to talk more about the other books you have. I know you have written smaller books like about ships and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 2 books out right now. The first one's called The Wrecking Crew. It's about a deep-sea salvage diver who gets freed from prison in order to lead a mission to try to find a lost research scientist off the Horn of Africa. And the character arc in this is really about this loner character putting together a really unlikely crew of people because that's the only way that any of them are going to make it out again. And then the second book picks up right afterwards, and that's the one that I wrote when Sammy was just born. So what that book is about is it's about that same crew. This time they're facing down called like a technology cult based out of Japan with roots in the secret weapons programs of World War II. But in that book, it's much more about, instead of just being allies, they become a family. And one of the things I liked most about this book is about a group of people that are coming together despite being exhausted and miserable and pushed to their limit at every step of the way. That's kind of how we were feeling as a family in those first few months. So it's something that, I mean, the book's very personal to me as a result, because it's a time capsule of those first few all-important months.
It sounds like a very good book. I'm going to check it out because I'm always reading the self-help books or technology books. I need to change it up a little bit. Maybe check it out.
Yeah, this one's just pure fun adventure fiction. It's the type of thing that, I'm hoping people read on a beach or on a plane, or just if they want a little break.
All right. Well, wrapping up, I guess. Final thoughts. Anything you want to share, like any new dads, or being a dad? Anything you want to share, and anything like you want to share?
Well, that's a great question. Something to share to other new dads. I think that I don't want to be pushy with this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it regardless. I feel like, okay, when you're a new dad, oftentimes you're going to be bumping into other new dads, right? And I feel like I've met many that are just not engaged, right? I don't know if it's because they're not changing diapers or they're tired. It's they kind of just have this look in their eyes like they want to be almost anywhere else but there with their little guys. So, I mean, again, I'd hate to make this like some kind of a pushy message or something, but just get in there. It's exhausting. Sometimes it's gross. Whether it's changing diapers or dealing with all kinds of other baby stuff, but just really jump in both feet. That would be the thing that I would certainly love to see in the world more.
Definitely get involved. It's challenging and tiring, but it's definitely rewarding.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. I think that we only get this one chance with our kids. In the time that they're this age is so short. So how do we want to look back at that time? I personally don't want to look back with any regrets about how I was as a father, and I'm sure that that's totally impossible, right? It's a totally impossible idea, but it won't be for lack of trying, I hope.
Also, where can they find your book? And if they want to again contact you and reach out to you, where can they find you? How do you contact information?
Absolutely. Expeditionwriter.com is a great place to reach me. If you're able to put in The Wrecking Crew into Amazon or Barnes & Noble, I'm going to be the only author with a Polish last name, Taylor Zajonc. So that's I'm pretty easy to find on any kind of major online book retailer.
I'm going to make sure all that stuff's in the show notes, so if people want to reach out and look for it, it'll definitely be in the show notes. Tyler, I want to say thank you very much for being on the podcast today and taking your time out of your day. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks so much, Joe. This was a lot of fun.
Well, that's all I have this episode. I want to thank you for joining me in the No City on the Sideline Dad podcast. And I want to thank Taylor Zajonc for being the guest on the podcast. You can find more about Tyler at expeditionwriters.com. You can find all the links in the show notes over at nocityonthesideline.com/43. Please comment on the podcast. All comments help improve the podcast. Man, please reach out. Man, I'd like to talk to you. Reach out. Say hello. Leave a message. Send me an emoji. Let me know you're there. I'm starting to preach. What was this? I'm having a little fun. This is like a couple times I recorded this. You can find all the my contact information over at nocityonthesideline.com/contact. Please sign up for the email newsletter. Let me keep you in touch with what's going on with the podcast, what's come up with an upcoming guest, or anything that might be helpful to you, and I might find that might be interesting to you. Next episode, my conversation with Sharon Shelby. We'll talk about how to help children when the child, he or she, is anxious. And also her new book is a Kickstarter right now. She's running a Kickstarter campaign to get this published. And the name of the book is Surfing the Worry Imp Wave. Right now, like I said, it's a Kickstarter. And I think we'll check it out. Check it out. I will have a link in the show notes. It'll be nocityonthesideline.com/surfing the worry imps wave. You know, if you like it, give her a hand and help her out. Help back it, because, you know, it's a really, really helpful project. Well, wrapping up, heading out the door, I just want to say thank you. Really, thank you for making this far in the podcast. Until next time, have fun, get involved with your children, give them a hug, and tell them how much you love them. Because you know what? It means the world to them. Time's short. Time goes by quick. And you know what? They're a gift. Until next time, take care. God bless. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates of the show and helpful and useful tips. This has been a production of Foley 42 Media.